Right in the very house I had sweated to build, after 23 years of marriage, I discovered my wife and my own son-in-law, the husband of my daughter, had secretly planned to destroy me and seize an entire fortune worth tens of millions of dollars. The most bitter part? That woman used to be my college sweetheart, but because of one insult decades ago, she had carried hatred all those years, only to return to my life for revenge. And when the truth was revealed, my own daughter, the one I love most, looked straight into my eyes and said, "Dad, I don't even know who to believe anymore." Before I continue telling this shocking story, please hit subscribe and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. That helps give me more strength to share my stories, and I am deeply grateful you are here. Let me continue. I don't know if you have ever felt it, that moment so ordinary, almost meaningless, suddenly turning into a knife ripping your whole life apart. That afternoon, the sky over Iowa City was crystal blue, the road lined with trees leading to the quiet suburbs where my daughter lived. I had just returned from Point A, the partner's office in Iowa City. The schedule had been packed, a meeting expected to last until night, but they had a sudden matter and canceled early. Every other time, if I came home early, I would call Marissa, my wife. We had kept that habit for years, but today, since the meeting place was close to Point B, Coral Ridge Mall, and it was on the way to Lena's house, I had the idea to drop by unexpectedly, maybe have dinner together, hear my daughter's laughter echo in a brightly lit kitchen. I drove leisurely. Then right at the gate of the house, a sight made me pause. A shiny silver Audi parked boldly. I was only slightly surprised. Strange. Why would Marissa be here? But I still had no suspicion. Perhaps she had just stopped by to see our daughter. Nothing unusual. I even smiled, thinking the whole family might gather tonight. I turned off the engine. The keys dangled in the ignition, my palm damp with sweat. The curtains were slightly drawn, pale light spilling in. I stepped quietly toward the side window, holding my breath. The voices inside turned that ordinary moment into an abyss. Once the old man signs the papers, everything will belong to us. Marissa's voice, smooth, familiar, but now venomous. I froze. My ears rang, yet every word still struck like a hammer. A man's voice cut in. Ethan, my son-in-law. A young lawyer, sharp, the one who once reassured me when Lena chose him. Through the crack in the curtain, I saw him leaning against the bookshelf, speaking clearly. File in June. Grounds, irreconcilable differences. Under current law, Marissa gets half the assets plus long-term spousal support. Avery and Whitaker Builders is valued at around $12 million, plus real estate, the vacation house, investments, at least $20 million. $20 million. The number pounded in my head. Years of grinding 16-hour days, building Avery and Whitaker Builders from nothing, every roof I framed, now weighed like merchandise. Marissa laughed. The laugh that once shook my young heart, now a dagger. He really believes it, Ethan. Believes I love him, believes every word for more than 23 years. I turned on my phone, my hand trembling, and started recording. From that moment on, every word would be evidence. A dry branch snapped under my foot. Crack! Silence inside. I pressed against the brick wall, my heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" Marissa whispered. "Probably just the neighbor's cat." Ethan smirked. He could never imagine. He thinks he's playing chess, but we've set up a whole different board. My blood froze. Ethan shrugged, his tone dropping. "The truth is, I've got no way out either, Marissa. My law office is drowning in debt after failed investments. Stocks, crypto, commercial real estate. I lost it all. If word gets out, I lose both reputation and career. I can't let Lena know, can't let clients sense weakness. I need money, and I need it fast. That old man is the only lifeline. If we succeed, I pay off everything, keep my office, and you walk away from a fake marriage with half a fortune. That's why we're on the same side." Marissa nodded, her eyes cold as steel. "Exactly, Ethan. You are my perfect ally. You need money. I need revenge. And Thomas will lose everything. Ethan chuckled, mocking. But tell me honestly, Marissa, why waste all those years? 23 years playing the devoted wife, just to cut that money in half now? A pause. Then Marissa laughed softly, a laugh sharp as a blade. Money is only part of it. I want to ruin him. Back in college, I stupidly admired Thomas. I mustered all my courage to invite him to a party, and he mocked me in front of his friends, calling me an ugly duckling. The whole lecture hall laughed. I fell into a pit. From that moment, I swore he would pay. Ethan leaned closer, eyes gleaming with curiosity. So the entire marriage was just revenge? Yes. After that humiliation, I went under the knife and changed everything. I became the woman he wouldn't recognize. At that gala, Thomas thought he had met a blessing, when in fact he had walked into my trap. Ethan lifted his glass. Impressive. Nursing hatred for more than 2 decades, just to shatter the life of one man who once mocked you. Marissa narrowed her eyes, her gaze burning. Not just shatter. I want him stripped of everything. Wealth, reputation, his daughter's trust. So he understands that one small insult can sow a lifetime of tragedy. I stepped back, my world collapsing. The woman I had cherished for more than 2 decades was conspiring with my son-in-law to destroy me and scorn me as a blind fool. I returned to my car, heart racing. 23 years of marriage, 1 daughter, countless memories, all shattered. The Honda roared to life. 15 minutes earlier, I had been a family man. Now only emptiness, numbness, and a smoldering rage remained. Deep inside, a vow carved itself. They think I will bow down. They are wrong. I pulled out from the alley beside Lena's house, back into my car seat. The engine was quiet. Only my pounding heartbeat remained. My fingers gripped the wheel, veins bulging. On the phone screen, the red recording light still blinked, living proof of the betrayal I had just heard with my own ears. The evening breeze slipped through the crack in the window, but all I felt was burning heat. I sat in silence, as old memories surged like a faded film. Back then, I was a 21-year-old in my final year studying architecture at the University of Iowa. Tall, with thick black hair, broad shoulders, the kind of appearance that made me arrogant. After a design competition, a small company noticed me and paid me handsomely. The sweet taste of early success made me drunk with myself, thinking the world would soon be mine. In that lecture hall was Marissa, just an ordinary student then, petite, with an unremarkable face but bright eyes. I knew she had feelings for me, the way she blushed when I caught her gaze, or when she mustered all her courage to invite me to a student party. I refused, and even sneered in front of my friends. Her? An ugly duckling. Why would I waste my time? Her face froze as if slapped. I didn't care. I thought life would give me prouder, more worthy women. After that year, we lost contact. I plunged into work, forgetting the past. Many years later, I met Marissa again at a charity gala. I had become a successful architect, building my own construction firm, and she appeared as a completely different person. Blonde hair softly curled, a slender figure, a balanced face that made me pause in surprise. Before me stood a charming, confident woman who seemed to bear no grudge over the past. Marissa smiled at me, a smile like forgiveness. I was swept into that whirlpool. 6 months later, we married. I believed I was lucky, that life had gifted me a beautiful, intelligent woman. 23 years together, I thought it was compensation for a youthful mistake. Who would have thought that marriage was only part of a revenge plan? Looking back, the signs were there. Every smile, every compliment, every tender embrace was a mask. Marissa knew how to make me believe I was loved. She built the image of a devoted wife, listening to my stories from the construction site, sharing in every time the company won a contract. Today, at Lena's window, I finally understood it was all a veil. Marissa had returned to my life to settle a debt from the past. The moment I mocked her in the lecture hall had planted the seed of resentment. Now it had grown into a plot of destruction, and she had joined hands with Ethan, a younger man skilled in words and finance, but crushed under massive debt from failed investments. Ambition combined with fear of losing reputation made him the perfect ally. Marissa needed a legal mind to legitimize the division of assets. Ethan needed money to save his collapsing career. And me, I was only the fat prey. I closed my eyes, letting memory and reality blend. All those years I lived with her, believing it was happiness. In truth, I had been sheltering an enemy for more than 2 decades. But I was no longer the arrogant college boy, nor the naive husband. I was a businessman who had weathered dozens of crises, who had built an empire from nothing. If Marissa thought she could crush me with false affection and legal tricks, she would soon learn she had chosen the wrong opponent. I opened my eyes, looking at the phone screen. The recording was still there, 43 minutes marking the start of a new war. I breathed deeply. Pain gave way to cold clarity. From now on, every step I took would not only be to protect assets, but to expose the truth, and end Marissa's revenge game once and for all. I drove home in a half-dreaming state. The familiar road slipped past the windshield, though I was not aware of each turn. Only Marissa's laughter replayed in my head, Ethan's cold stare, the numbers 20 million, half the assets, lifetime support. I reached the large house I had built with my own hands since 2001, the iron gate opening with the card, the mechanical sound once familiar, now ringing like chains. I entered the living room, gazing at what had been my pride. The leather chair I chose stitch by stitch, the imported walnut bookshelf, the family photos on the wall. Suddenly, everything was hollow, fake, like a stage where I was the only one outside the script. I dropped into the chair, leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting the pain tear at me. I had lived with a woman for more than 23 years, trusting every smile, every tear, yet it had all been an act. I felt humiliated, but that shame quickly turned into something else, something cold and resolute. I had once built Avery and Whitaker Builders from nothing into a company worth tens of millions of dollars. I had faced financial crises, failed contracts, and worker strikes, yet every time I found a way through. If Marissa thought that a false accusation and a few of Ethan's legal maneuvers could bring me down, she had miscalculated. The shock had awakened my survival instinct. From this moment, I would no longer be the weak husband. I would be Thomas Avery, the man who calculated every step, the man who could look at a blueprint and raise it with brick, steel, and willpower. Now I needed a new blueprint, a blueprint for this war. The next morning I woke as if a campaign had officially begun. The sky was dark, streaks of gray clouds above, heralding a stormy day, matching my mood like a reminder. I brewed coffee, the bitter aroma rising, but the bitterness in my chest was sharper. 10 minutes. Before 8, the phone buzzed, Marcus's name on the screen. "Thomas, I saw your request. I'm on my way to your office. What's so urgent?" I answered briefly, "A matter of survival. You'll understand when you get here." An hour later, we sat in the third-floor conference room of Avery and Whitaker Builders. The wide glass looked down on the construction site, the sound of drills and hammers pounding like war drums. Marcus spread the files on the table, flipping through each folder, his sharp eyes scanning every line. "You want to freeze all joint access accounts, meaning the accounts Marissa can withdraw from. Are you sure?" I nodded without hesitation. "Not just freeze. I want every transfer to require my direct signature. No exceptions." Marcus frowned. "This will cause trouble. She'll notice immediately." I clenched my fist. "All the better. I want her to know it's time to play by my rules." While Marcus called the bank to set up the procedures, I received a message from Mike. "Surveillance started. At 9 o'clock, Marissa left home and drove the silver Audi to Ethan's office. Sitting in the conference room, a tense conversation. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene, the two conspirators huddled together, thinking I was still naive. They didn't know their every move was under distant cameras, with updates feeding my phone by the minute. By noon, after Marcus left with the file stack, I returned to my office. The phone rang. The caller ID, Marissa. I hesitated briefly, then answered. Her voice sounded urgent, trying to be gentle. Thomas, did you notice anything strange with the bank? I tried to pay at a jewelry store and was declined. They said there were some restrictions. I held back a rising laugh. Probably a system glitch. Don't worry, I'll check. I heard the flicker of unease in her tone. But it's odd. Please check soon. I hung up, letting her sit with the first stirrings of anxiety. That afternoon, Mike reported again. Ethan and Marissa argued for 2 hours in his office. From their tone, they're worried about finances. Ethan called a banking advisor, angry. Then both left together, heading to the parking lot. Tense, Marissa looked shaken. I smiled faintly. That was only the first step. By evening, I came home late. The living room lights were bright. Marissa sat waiting, her face stiff, her smile plastered like a mask. Honey, I'm having trouble with the accounts. Today I was declined at both the jewelry store and a restaurant. Did you do something? I hung my jacket, poured a glass of whiskey, took a sip, then calmly replied, I've been too busy. Didn't notice? Maybe the bank raised security. Don't worry. Everything's fine. She stared at me, probing, as if to extract a clue. I looked back, steady, cold. After a few seconds, she turned away, biting her lip, silent. That night, when Marissa shut her separate bedroom door, we had long slept apart. I sat in my study, papers spread out. I wrote down keywords, assets, evidence, allies, public plan. I knew this battle would not end with bank statements. Marissa and Ethan would counterattack. They would not give up easily after more than 23 years of hatred and debts pressing their throats. But I also knew that now I held the upper hand. With every passing moment, their composure was cracking. And once conspirators lose composure, mistakes appear. I looked at the recording on my phone, replaying a few lines. Ethan's cold voice. He could never imagine. He thinks he's playing chess while we've set up a different board. I smirked. They thought they were masters, and I was just a pawn. But from today, I will be the one arranging the board, and the next move would be the one to make them truly panic. I stood up and walked into my study. This had always been my creative space, where I sketched major projects, but now it would become a battlefield. I turned on the light, the yellow glow spilling across shelves holding decades of documents, contracts, financial reports, project files. I opened a drawer and pulled out a stack of yellow-lined paper and the Parker pen I always used to sign multi-million-dollar contracts. I wrote 3 words, counterattack plan. First, I needed to control the finances. Ethan had surely shown Marissa how to exploit marriage laws to force me to split half the assets. But he didn't know everything. I had strategic investments and company structures that were understood only by me and my most trusted chief accountant. I powered on my computer, logged into the private storage system, and began reviewing every account, every flow of money. I had to ensure not a single dollar would fall into their hands before I was ready. Second, I needed evidence. The recording on my phone was crucial, but a single piece of audio would not be enough in court. I called Mike Donnelly, an old friend who now worked as a private investigator. His gravelly voice came over the line. Thomas, it's been a while. What's going on? I hesitated for a few seconds, then answered in a restrained tone. I need you to follow my wife and my son-in-law, starting tomorrow. Every meeting, every transaction, every word. I need evidence that cannot be denied. Mike was silent for a moment, then said, Are you sure? This will reveal things you may not want to hear. I closed my eyes. I've heard enough to know it must be done. Third, I needed allies. I thought of Marcus Blake, my chief accountant for 10 years. A man so honest he seemed dry, but that very dryness made him completely trustworthy. I drafted a short email. Marcus, I need to meet you as soon as possible. We must review all assets, legal structures, and prepare an emergency protection plan. Absolute confidentiality. I pressed send, knowing Marcus would respond within the hour. When those tasks were finished, I sat silently, looking out into the garden that Marissa once hired people to maintain and trim weekly. That green patch now only filled me with disgust. I understood this battle was not just about money. It was about honor, about proving that I was not a foolish pawn in Marissa's revenge game. I drew a deep breath. The pain in my chest eased, replaced by cold focus. I had passed through the stage of grief. Now was the time to begin building a strategy, step by step, like raising a fortress. They thought I would collapse, but they forgot I was the man who knew how to stand firm, even as storms poured down. I looked once more at the recording, replaying a few seconds. Marissa's voice rang out. I want him stripped of everything. Money, reputation, his daughter's trust. That sentence was like a spark. I shut the phone, set it on the desk, and in my mind only one vow echoed. Marissa, Ethan, you want to destroy me. But in the end, you will destroy yourselves. 2 days later, a text from Mike arrived. Ethan tried to withdraw money from the trust fund. Blocked. He's furious. I read it with a faint smirk. But by evening, when I arrived home, the atmosphere had changed. Marissa stood waiting in the living room, no longer hiding. Her eyes blazed, her arms crossed tightly. Thomas, she spat each word. Ethan and I reviewed the cameras around Lena's house. Your car was parked on the corner that night. You eavesdropped. You know everything. I stopped, took off my coat, poured a glass of whiskey, and tried to keep my voice calm. And if I did? Marissa stepped forward, a twisted smile on her lips. No longer the smile of a wife, but of someone who had nursed hatred. Then it means 23 years have not been wasted. Do you remember? Back in college, you were arrogant, looking down on everyone. You humiliated me in front of your friends, turned me into a laughingstock. That day, I swore there would come a time when you would be on your knees. And today, that time has come. I gripped the glass tightly, each word piercing like a knife. Marissa lifted her chin, her voice hissing. You thought I married you for love? Number, I married you for money, for power, because it was the only way to destroy you from the inside. Every gift, every kiss, every anniversary dinner, all an act. You built this empire for years, and Ethan and I will tear it apart in months. And when you have nothing left, I will look you in the eye. So you remember that day you humiliated me. So you understand what it feels like to be crushed. The air in the living room froze. I swallowed the lump in my throat and stared at her. Marissa, you wasted 23 years of your life just to avenge some childish slight from college. You destroyed this family, our daughter, just to satisfy that petty grudge. But she burst out laughing, a sharp laugh echoing, Family? Daughter? To me, they were only props. The only thing that mattered was that you paid. I had surgery, remade myself, played the perfect wife just so today I could strip everything from you. And I will, Thomas, even if I have to drag you into the mud. I stood still, turmoil raging inside, but my face remained steel. In that moment, I understood. This was no longer a divorce or division of assets. This was a revenge war, decades in the making, and my enemies were not only a greedy son-in-law, but a woman who lived on hatred. After that confrontation, I knew Marissa would not stop. She had revealed herself, confessed everything, which meant there was nothing left to hide. But instead of panicking the next morning, Mike reported, Ethan and Marissa met very early in his office. No arguing this time, just planning. Very long, nearly 3 hours. Leaving, both were smiling as if they had just found a new move. I read the text, my heart heavy. Indeed, only a few hours later, Marcus rushed into my office, laying down a stack of papers. Thomas, the court received a restraining order request, filed by Marissa. Allegation, financial abuse. I flipped through the pages, blood rushing to my head. In the petition, Marissa claimed I froze her cards, cut off spending rights, and used money to control her. The words were crafted so carefully that an outsider would surely believe I was an authoritarian, financially abusive husband. I gave a bitter laugh, though my hand clenched white. Ethan, he had written it. The petition carried the mark of an ambitious lawyer who knew exactly which words to use to strike at the weak point. At noon, when I stopped by Riverside Club, where Marissa often met her social circle, I heard the whispers behind me. Poor Marissa, living with him must be terrible, controlled over every dollar. I heard he even blocked her cards, won't let her spend. Truly domineering. I kept walking, my face expressionless, but inside, fury flared. Clearly she had spread the story that very morning, and the crowd had swallowed it like bait. That night, more reports came from Mike. Marissa is calling friends constantly, crying, saying you're cold, cutting off funds to punish her. Ethan is lobbying quietly, whispering to contacts in the legal field that you show controlling behavior. They're working in perfect sync, painting you as an abuser. I sat in my study, the yellow desk lamp shining on stacks of files. On the wall still hung the wedding photo, Marissa smiling radiantly in her white dress. I looked at the photo, then at the lawsuit. Those two images seemed to belong to different worlds. But what pierced my heart most was not the petition or the gossip. It was when Lena stepped in, hesitantly asking, "Dad, is it true you really cut off Mom's cards to punish her? She says you're more controlling, colder. My friends are starting to hear about it too." I looked at my daughter, her eyes red, and my heart sank. I only said slowly, "Lena, you don't have to believe me right now. Just watch carefully, and you will see the truth." But in her eyes I already saw doubt. Marissa had begun to win, at least in the heart of the daughter I loved most. That night I sat alone for a long time, staring at the city lights outside the window. I knew this was no longer probing blows. This was a true counterattack, a carefully calculated campaign. Marissa had public opinion. Ethan had the law, and now they had begun to shake even Lena. I drew a deep breath, gripping the whiskey glass. Rage boiled, but within it rose a new coldness. If this was the war they wanted, I would show them I was not prey to be devoured. Just 1 week after the lawsuit was filed, the cracks had already spread into my company. Marcus laid a stack of reports in front of me, his voice heavy. "Thomas, Morrison Development is delaying the signing of the contract addendum. They say they want to reconsider the legal factors surrounding your family situation." I stayed silent. Morrison, that was the healthcare project worth nearly $30 million. If they pulled out, my company would lose almost 1/3 of this year's revenue. Clearly, Ethan's hand was already reaching in. That afternoon, Jim, a longtime shareholder, called me. His voice was uneasy. "Thomas, I don't want to believe the rumors, but the bank is paying close attention to your case. They fear credit risks. Some partners are asking me whether you're in a personal crisis that could affect the company. I need an answer." I took a deep breath and kept my voice steady. "Jim, the company is solid as steel. This is nothing but a personal smear." But I could hear the hesitation on the other end. The reputation I had spent a lifetime building was shaking, not because I had broken promises, but because someone else was spreading poison. That night, Mike sent a report. "Ethan has approached several legal partners, hinting that Avery and Whitaker Builders is about to face lawsuits, that the owner's assets may be frozen. He's suggesting they reconsider contracts to avoid risk." I gripped the phone, my heart pounding. This was no longer intimidation. This was a direct strike at my career. Ethan knew exactly where it hurt most. The next morning I walked into the company. Employees avoided my eyes. Some whispered behind me. The rumors had reached here. A young accountant who had joined last year looked at me and turned away. I didn't blame them. With everything leaking outside, anyone would fear for their job. I sat in my office, staring through the large glass at the city. This place had once been my pride, proof of 30 years of labor. Now it felt as fragile as a sandcastle before the tide. At noon, Marcus came in and dropped a thick file on my desk. "Thomas, there's a request for an independent audit of the company. Someone sent an anonymous petition to the regulators, claiming we are hiding assets." I closed my eyes. I knew that. Someone was none other than Ethan. With a few sheets of paper, he had turned my transparency into suspicion. One more rumor, and I would lose another contract. That evening, I returned home late. The city lights glowed, but inside me it was all dark. I sat down, poured a glass of whiskey, and for the first time in many years, I felt my hands tremble. I was not afraid of losing money. I had once started again from nothing. But I feared losing the one thing that could never be rebuilt: honor. If the public believed Marissa and Ethan's story, I would be condemned before stepping into court. And once trust collapses, no structure can stand. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. In the darkness, a thought sparked. They wanted to drag me into the mud, to make me a loser in the very city I had built. But they had forgotten. I was not just a stubborn old man. I was Thomas Avery, the man who had turned 2 bare hands into a construction empire. And if necessary, I would use that very mud to drown them. After days of delayed contracts and spreading rumors, I thought I had endured enough. But the most devastating blow came from where I least expected, from my own daughter. On Thursday night, while I was reviewing the urgent audit reports, Lena walked in, her face pale. Her eyes were red, her voice trembling but determined. "Dad, I need to ask directly. Have you really controlled Mom all these years? Did you cut off her cards? Not give her a cent of freedom?" I looked at my daughter, the child I had once carried in my arms, raised with all my love, and now in her eyes was nothing but doubt. My chest tightened, heavy. Hours earlier, Marissa had taken Lena to a small restaurant, playing the part of the suffering mother. Mike, as always, was nearby and recorded everything. "Sweetheart," Marissa held Lena's hand tightly, her voice quivering. "I've endured too long. 23 years living in the shadows. Do you think I'm happy? Swiping a card with trembling hands, never knowing when it would be declined. Do you know how humiliating it is to have friends laugh at you in the middle of lunch because your card doesn't go through?" Tears streamed down her face, tears I knew were nothing but props. Lena sat frozen, her soft heart unable to resist. Right then, Ethan walked in, polished, carrying a briefcase. He laid papers on the table, his tone calm. "I'm sorry to step in, but Lena, you need to see the evidence. Here are the statements. All major accounts are under your father's control. Your mother only has small limits. This is textbook financial abuse. The law calls it a form of domestic violence. And now, when your mother dared to resist, your father cut everything." Lena trembled. "But Dad never let Mom lack anything. I never saw her abandoned." Marissa seized the moment, clutching her daughter's hand. "That's the trick, darling. He gave just enough to keep me dependent, so I always had to bow my head. That is imprisonment through money. Can you forgive that?" Mike reported that Lena broke down crying right there, collapsing into her mother's arms. Hearing his account, my heart twisted. My daughter, the only light of my life, was now shielding the very ones who wanted to destroy me. And now my daughter stood before me saying, "Dad, I want to believe you, but why are you silent? Why won't you explain? If you're not guilty, why does all the evidence stand against you?" My heart roared, but I kept my voice steady. "There are truths you must witness with your own eyes, Lena. Then you will know who really betrayed this family." I placed the phone on the desk. "Listen to this. Marissa's voice came cold as a blade. When the old man signs the papers, we'll have it all. 23 years was just an act. I never loved him. Ethan replied clearly. On schedule next month we file. Assets, a minimum of 20 million. The sound dropped into the silent room like a hammer. Lena froze. Her lips trembled. Her eyes widened as if her whole world had shattered. Tears streamed, falling onto her clenched hands. Then she burst into sobs, rushing into my arms, crying, "Dad, I'm sorry. I doubted you. I can't believe. Mom and Ethan said those things. I feel like my entire life just collapsed." I held her, my chest torn apart. I knew this shock ripped her heart to pieces. One was her mother, the other her husband, Lena's two pillars, now turned traitors. She cried herself to exhaustion in my arms. In that moment, I thought I had regained my daughter. That truth had triumphed. But I was wrong. The next day, Lena herself went to see Ethan. She didn't tell me, but Mike, the investigator, followed and recounted every detail. Lena arrived at her husband's law office, her face haggard, her eyes swollen red. She closed the door, set her phone on the desk, her voice shaking yet firm. "Ethan, I heard it. I heard you and Mom talking about destroying Dad, about seizing the assets. Don't tell me I misheard. Don't deny it anymore." Ethan froze for a moment, but quickly regained composure. He leaned back in his chair, sighed, then looked straight into his wife's eyes. "Lena, I understand your pain, but you need to be rational. Do you think a businessman like your father, a man who has won countless contracts, using every trick in the book, couldn't stage a fake recording? You only heard a few lines. Are you certain it's the truth? Or could it be something crafted to turn you against your own mother? And against me?" His voice was warm, soothing, but each word dripped like poison. Lena faltered, her heart shattered by betrayal, now shaken again by her husband's defense. She choked out, I don't know who to believe anymore. If that was fake, then why did it sound so real?" Ethan stood up, walked closer, placing a hand lightly on his wife's shoulder, his eyes deep. "I'll prove it to you. Just trust me this one time, Lena. We'll turn everything around." Ethan stood before Lena, his voice dripping like honey. "I'll prove it to you." He opened a drawer, pulled out a small recorder, and set it on the desk. "Say a few random sentences. Anything you want." Lena hesitated, but under her husband's certainty she whispered, "Today the weather is cold. I feel tired and confused. I don't know who to believe." Ethan smiled, nodded, and pressed save. He quickly sent the file to a trusted colleague, a man I later learned was a freelance hacker. The man promised to handle it immediately. Just half an hour later, Ethan's phone buzzed. He opened a new file and played it for his wife. And there it was, Lena's own voice, every cadence, every breath. My father fabricated everything to destroy Mom and Ethan. The recording he gave is nothing but a spliced fake. Lena froze. Her eyes widened, her hand shaking as it covered her mouth. She was hearing her own voice say words she had never spoken. Her face went pale, then twisted into utter confusion. Ethan seized the moment, gripping her shoulders gently, his tone solemn. "You see, technology today makes it too easy to fake. A seasoned man like your father who has used every trick to win contracts and deals. How hard would it be for him to fabricate a recording like that? Lena, I beg you, stay rational. Don't let him exploit our feelings to turn you against your own mother." Tears streamed down Lena's face. She shook her head over and over. I don't know who to believe anymore. Why is everything like this? Dad says one thing, you and Mom say another. The evidence, it all points to Dad, and what Dad gave me. Now it turns out that could also be fake. Ethan whispered like comfort, "Trust me, Lena. Trust your mother. Your father is not the man you think. If you love me, if you love our little family, then stand with this truth." Lena returned home, her eyes full of tears, but her face tense, as if she had fought hundreds of battles inside. She walked straight into the study where I sat, her voice trembling yet sharp as a blade. "Dad, I heard it. I tried it myself. My own voice can be cut and spliced into things I never said. If that's possible, then your recording could also be something you fabricated. You're experienced, shrewd, and you could easily do it. Dad, I don't know who to believe anymore." My heart clenched. My daughter's words stabbed into me like a knife. I opened my mouth to explain, but then it struck me. The security cameras. I jumped up, urgent. "Lena, do you remember that night when I stopped by?" The front door camera must have caught it. "Open the app and check. The truth is right there. It can't be faked." Lena paused, hope flickering in her eyes. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to the exact date and time I mentioned. We leaned together over the screen. But when the video played, my heart sank into a void. There was no trace of my car parked by Marissa's silver Audi at the gate. No image of me by the window. The footage showed only a quiet house. Marissa and Ethan sitting calmly in the living room, chatting like any ordinary evening. Lena stared at the screen, her lips trembling. "Dad." But here, there's nothing. Only Mom's car and no sign of you. If you were really there, why didn't the camera record it? I was speechless, my hands clenching. I knew with absolute certainty I had been there, that I had seen Marissa's Audi at the gate, that I had heard their scheme with my own ears. And yet now every trace had vanished. In that moment, I understood. Ethan. He was a slick lawyer with connections in tech. With his tricks, hacking into the camera system to create an alibi was nothing to him. It was a deadly move, enough to brand me a delusional fool in my own daughter's eyes. Lena stepped back, her face filled with crushing disappointment. Tears fell, but her voice was cold. "Dad, I want to believe you, but time after time, the evidence stands against you. I can't believe it anymore." She turned and left. The door slammed, leaving me alone with the black screen. I collapsed into the chair, my head in my hands. I had thought I had tasted enough bitterness, but this was the true depth of despair. Being rejected by my own daughter, because every piece of evidence had been twisted by cunning enemies. But I knew, if I stopped now, I would lose everything, my company, my honor, and my daughter. I dialed Mike, the investigator who had been watching Marissa from the beginning. My voice was low, firm. "Mike, we need live evidence, at all costs. Audio and images in the moment are impossible to tamper with." Mike replied, "My partner and I will stay on them 24/7. The moment they slip, we'll catch it." After hanging up, I sat motionless in the dark. In my mind still echoed the hacked footage. Footage scrubbed clean of every trace. Ethan had planned even that far, not only stealing my daughter's trust, but erasing my right to it. 2 days later, the chance came. Mike reported, "Marissa just left home, not to the market or her club as usual. She went to a strange cafe downtown. Half an hour later, Ethan left his office and went straight there. I'm sure this is a secret meeting. I called Lena immediately. My voice shook, but was steady. If you truly want the truth, come with me. You'll hear it with your own ears." When we arrived, my daughter and I sat in the car outside the cafe, my heart pounding like war drums. Mike had arranged for a colleague, a woman, to pass by Marissa and Ethan's table. She accidentally dropped a file on the floor, bent to pick it up, and discreetly placed a recorder under the table. Just minutes later, familiar voices filled the earpiece we both wore. Ethan, voice low but firm. "Don't worry. In court, we'll have the upper hand. The cameras are handled, and the audio recording I've already shown, Lena can easily be faked. What matters is consistency. Marissa, remember well, you are the victim." Marissa gave a cold laugh, venom in her voice. 23 years I've waited for this day. I won't miss it. He humiliated me back in college, and this is how I take it all back. Ethan, Make sure I get my share of the assets. Ethan nodded, his tone sharp. The assets plus his reputation were destroyed. When Thomas falls, I escape my debts. We both win. Hearing this, Lena sat frozen. Her shoulders shook violently, tears streaming down her face. I didn't need to say another word. The live evidence had spoken for itself. Marissa went on, dripping venom. Don't forget, Ethan. If necessary, I can even drag Lena in as a witness. She trusts me, and her testimony will be the final blow. At that, Lena could no longer hold back, sobbing in the car. She ripped off the earpiece, buried her face in her hands. Dad, I was wrong. I doubted you. I turned my back on you. I don't know what to say. I wrapped my arms around her, my heart both aching and relieved. It's all right, Lena. I don't blame you. You've now seen and heard with your own eyes. The truth doesn't need me to prove it. They've unmasked themselves. Lena lifted her head, her eyes wet but more resolute than ever. Dad, from now on, I'll stand with you. I'll do everything to defend this truth. In that moment, I knew I had regained the most precious thing, my daughter's trust, and that was a weapon stronger than any contract or document. After that night at the cafe, when live evidence stripped them bare, Lena sat in the car, her cold hand clutching mine. Her eyes swollen red, but her gaze steady. Dad, from now on, I won't let Mom and Ethan deceive me again. We have to end this. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. But the next morning, reality returned. The trial was approaching fast, and Marissa and Ethan would unleash every last trick to bring me down. I convened a secret meeting in the company office. Only 4 people. Myself, Lena, Marcus, lawyer and financial advisor, and Mike, investigator. On the table lay dozens of files, bank statements, audio, and visual evidence. Marcus began, his voice calm but stern. Thomas, we have in hand live recordings and footage from the cafe. But in court, every piece of evidence must be indisputable. Ethan will argue endlessly. He'll try to prove those recordings are also fabricated. Mike cut in, his eyes sharp. That's right. Which is why I had a specialist run frequency analysis. The results matched 100% with Marissa and Ethan's real voices. No trace of splicing. If necessary, we'll call an independent expert to testify in court. I nodded, then looked at Lena. My daughter gripped my shoulder, her voice trembling but firm. I'll be a witness. Dad, I'll tell everything I heard with my own ears. I'll speak the truth, even if it means standing against my mother. The room fell silent for a few seconds. I looked at my daughter, the same child who once cried for a doll in the supermarket, now grown, ready to testify against lies. Pride and sorrow swelled inside me. Marcus continued, Ethan has another weakness. I dug into his financial records. He owes more than $180,000, including misuse of funds from a trust account. If we present this in court, his legal career collapses instantly. Mike added, and don't forget, I have records of him meeting with a hacker to alter the cameras. We don't yet have direct digital proof, but we do have a witness who saw Ethan entering and leaving with that man. I leaned back, inhaling deeply. The pieces were aligning like a blueprint. I would not only defend, I would counterattack. We won't just prove they lied, I said slowly, my voice echoing in the room. We'll prove they conspired deliberately, from manipulating my daughter, to fabricating evidence, to attempting to seize assets. This will not be just a divorce. It will be the full truth laid bare. Lena nodded firmly, her eyes glistening but blazing bright. I'll stand with you to the end, Dad. The meeting ended as dusk settled. I stepped out onto the office balcony, looking down at the workers still laboring under the yellow lights. They still believed in me, in the company I built, and now I had to fight, not only for myself, but for them, and above all, for the trust my daughter had just returned to me. A vow thundered inside me. Marissa, Ethan, this battle ends in court, and this time, no more tricks. The courtroom that morning was packed. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting light across the cold wooden benches. The gavel struck sharply. The case of plaintiff Marissa Cole versus defendant Thomas Cole is now in session. Marissa sat at the plaintiff's table in a plain dark dress, her face painted lightly to show weariness. Ethan sat beside her, adjusting his tie, his eyes cold, as if certain of victory. On the opposite side, I sat with Marcus and Lena. My heart pounded, but my daughter's hand gripped mine tightly. I looked at her, catching the steady fire in her gaze, the only strength I needed for this war. Marissa's lawyer opened. Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Marissa, has endured financial abuse for 23 years of marriage. All bank accounts were under Mr. Thomas's control. She was given only a small allowance, and when she sought independence, he cut off her cards entirely. This is textbook financial abuse. Mrs. Marissa not only lost economic freedom, but suffered public humiliation. Marissa bowed her head, feigning sobs. Ethan nodded solemnly, playing the role of a loyal advocate for the victim. Whispers spread through the courtroom. I felt eyes of pity turning toward me. Marcus rose, his voice deep but clear. Your Honor, that is nothing but a fabricated tale. We have evidence showing that for the past 2 years, Mrs. Marissa and her son-in-law, Ethan, have conspired to seize all of Mr. Thomas's assets. The plaintiff's side jumped up in protest, but the judge raised a hand. Proceed, Counselor Marcus. Marcus opened his briefcase and placed documents on the table. Your Honor, first, please listen to this recording. The audio filled the speakers, sharp, undeniable. Marissa's voice. Once the old man signs the papers, we'll have everything. 23 years was just an act. I never loved him. Ethan's voice followed. On schedule, next month, we file. Assets, minimum $20 million. The courtroom froze. Marissa turned pale. Ethan scowled. But they could not deny it. It was their voices. The plaintiff's lawyer jumped up. Objection! The recording could be staged, spliced. Marcus smiled, holding up another file. We commissioned an independent frequency analysis. The results. No sign of tampering. And if required, the expert will testify in person. The judge nodded, eyes cold as they turned to Marissa and Ethan. Marcus pressed on. We now call a witness, Miss Lena Cole. The entire courtroom held its breath as my daughter stepped to the stand. Her voice trembled at first, but grew steady. I am the biological daughter of both plaintiff and defendant. I personally heard my mother and my husband, Ethan, discuss plans to seize my father's assets. I also heard them admit that the camera footage and false evidence were schemes to frame my father as a financial abuser. I cannot allow the truth to be twisted any longer. Murmurs erupted. Marissa leapt up, screaming, Lena! You've been brainwashed. I did this all for you. Lena faced her, tears in her eyes, but unyielding. No, Mom, you did it all for your hatred. You used me as a tool. I won't be deceived again. The judge called for order. Marcus delivered the final blow. And here, Your Honor, are Mr. Ethan's financial records. He is in debt $180,000 and has withdrawn funds illegally from a trust. This is a clear motive for collusion with Mrs. Marissa. Evidence was presented. Statements, bank records, and testimony from Mike, the investigator. Ethan's face drained of color. He stammered, scrambling for words. But it was over. The gavel struck. The court dismisses all claims of the plaintiff. Mrs. Marissa and Mr. Ethan are found with indications of fraud and perjury. The file will be forwarded for criminal investigation. The gavel fell again. The trial was closed. Marissa collapsed into her chair, her eyes hollow. Ethan bowed his head, sweat streaking down his face. I gripped my daughter's hand, feeling its trembling warmth. This time, we had won. The trial ended, but its shockwaves spread across the city. News flooded papers and television. Asset seizure plot. Wife and son-in-law conspire. Court dismisses case. Fraud investigation opened. My honor was restored, but for Marissa and Ethan, this was only the beginning of collapse. 2 weeks later, the Davenport County prosecutor announced Marissa was charged with perjury for filing false claims in her divorce petition and lying under oath. Her sentence, 2 years probation, fines, and a ban from charitable boards that had once been her playground. Ethan faced harsher charges, embezzling trust funds and collusion and fraud. The state bar immediately revoked his license. The criminal trial sentenced him to 3 years in prison and restitution to defrauded clients. Marissa broke down at the verdict. The woman who had nursed hatred for 23 years was now a shadow, scorned by society. Her high society friends at Riverside Club turned their backs. No more luxury cars, no more credit cards. She worked part-time shifts at a department store to survive. Ethan lost both freedom and fortune. Once a lawyer in expensive suits, now in an orange jumpsuit. The press dubbed him the man who destroyed his career with greed. Lena, my daughter, also rose from her own nightmare. Right after the trial, she filed for divorce from Ethan. In their final meeting, she looked him in the eye and said, "You not only betrayed my father, but also my trust and my love. I cannot live with a liar like you." Ethan gave a bitter, hopeless smile, but had no words left to keep her. Months later, Lena moved close to me, opening a small counseling office. Each morning she stopped by my company, bringing me a hot coffee, as if making up for the days she once doubted me. Cole Construction, the company I built, revived strongly. Partners returned, projects resumed, but above all, I felt my spirit revive. One afternoon, father and daughter sat on the porch, watching the sunset glow over the lake. Lena rested her head on my shoulder, whispering, "Dad, I was weak enough to be manipulated, but thanks to you, I've learned the most important thing. Real love never comes with deceit or control. You lost a wife, but you still have me, and I will never leave you again." Tears welled in my eyes. I whispered back, voice breaking, "All I need is you. That's enough." Before us, the sunset faded, giving way to a peaceful night. The deceitful past had closed. Ahead lay a new beginning, where father and daughter walked together, stronger than ever. My story ends here. After all the loss, I found back my daughter's trust, and justice finally prevailed. If you have listened this far, I truly thank you. Please share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can hear it. And if you want to follow more gripping stories, hit the little bell so you won't miss a single episode. Thank you sincerely. I'll see you in the next story.